Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bella Gamer, and today we're looking into everything cooking. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a strange video because an archetype is very closely tied into this. So, I'm going to do this first part of the video like I'm doing one of my archetype videos. Then, I'm going to do everything else, but I'll be like pretty much doing an ending cut, more or less, and then we'll move forward. So if you're watching the archetype video that comes from this is the wandering chef archetype. It's very, very interesting. And yeah, so we got a lot of stuff. And if you are watching just the archetype video that is coming from this video, then please go ahead and check out the little bubble up top here to get the full cooking video so you can see everything else that came out. But if you're just interested in the Wandering Chef, then this is going to be the video for you. Now, I do have to state before the video gets started that Paizo did send me a copy of the Tian Xia character guide for the sake of review, but this is not sponsored content. They're not paying me to do this. They just gave me the book to review. So, all thoughts and opinions here are my own. All right. So, let's go ahead and get on with the archetype. So, Wandering Chef. Now, for people who are unaware, cooking in China and in like Central Asia, actually like most of the world, obviously, but especially in Central Asia, which is where this book is mostly sourced from, is a really big deal, especially when it comes to medicinal styles of food. So there's lots of like these stories of foods that could, revitalize you, bring you fertility, all this other kind of stuff. And it's a very big aspect of like Central Asian cultures for the most part. So it's very reasonable, in fact, that we're going to get a archetype like this. And in all honesty, I'm so stoked to see more cooking put into Pathfinder. It's so unreasonable that player characters just go around eating nothing but rations or like whatever you can catch on the trail, berries or whatever, and like have any decent like living situation. You would be depressed living that way for an extended period of time. Having a cook in your party should be like one of the most hype things ever, and the Wandering Chef actually does not disappoint. So let's look at the dedication. The dedication itself gives you crafting if you are trained in crafting, if you aren't already trained in crafting, otherwise you get something else. Also, when you are crafting alchemical food, you can use cookware rather than alchemical, like a science or alchemist's tool belt or whatever it's called. Alchemist toolkit, that's what it is. It's right here in the text in front of me. So that's really nice as well if you want to make only alchemical food. I don't know how often that's really going to come up, honestly. I feel like people are just going to take the Alchemist Toolkit anyway so they can make other alchemical items. But hey, if this is your only form of bonus alchemy, then sure, just use some cooking implements. It's really great. In fact, I'm pretty sure a frying pan is a halfling weapon, so we're already like halfway there. It's really, really good. Also, it states here that whenever you use the subsist downtime activity, you can use either crafting or cooking lore for the check rather than survival. In my honest opinion, you should always be able to use cooking lore. I think that just makes complete sense, and it's something that should just be a thing. Like whatever foods you do find, you're really good at making good use of them. And in addition to this, whenever you roll a failure, you actually get a success instead. So it's really easy for you to subsist. Honestly, with the sheer number of checks that are just automatically a success for subsisting or like automatic subsisting, I don't even know why Paizo just has subsisting as a role at this point. They want you to succeed this, obviously. It makes no sense in a game to actually prevent you from subsisting because it's like, oh, well, I guess your characters die of starvation or something. Like, I know that's not the failure effect for subsisting, but still, I, at this point, having a subsist roll at all just seems silly by a design standpoint, as well as just obviously Paizo doesn't want you to starve. So, regardless, it's pretty good as long as like you're in maybe you're in an environment where it's really hard to survive. Then at least you're better. So in a situation like I don't know, maybe the mana wastes or something, that bonus feature there I think is really handy. Now, in addition to all this cooking stuff, you also get quick alchemy benefits, though instead of your normal ability to create like various alchemical items, you can only create consumables, and those consumables must be alchemical food. Makes a lot of sense. Most of the alchemical food you can find in the Pathfinder treasure vault, and we'll look over some of it here in the full video. If you're watching the archetype dedication video anyway, the full video has more food that I'll look at a little bit later. In addition to this, when you get the alchemical crafting bonus feat, because that's what it gives you, you must choose alchemical food, but you can choose alchemical food of first or second level rather than first level. Makes a lot of sense. You get the Wandering Chef dedication at level 2. So if this is what you get, then you get just some additional, possibly level 2 foods. There's probably just not a lot. Now, the one part about this that doesn't make a lot of sense is you get versatile vials. Now, these versatile vials in the archetype dedication are supposed to be like parcels of food or something like that. But technically, versatile vials are also just straight up acid bombs. So, yeah, it's weird. They're trying really hard to make the cook art, like this cooking dedication, work with the alchemical benefits, and there's just some points it doesn't quite match up one for one. I don't see a problem with having extra, acidic bombs. Maybe you just have some extra spicy vinegar, for instance, or something on hand. But yeah, it's just one of those weird parts that just kind of crosses the wires a little bit. But yeah, so in the entire dedication, you get, and let me kind of rephrase it just so that anyone who's watching can fully understand what it gives you. You become trained in crafting or another skill of your choice if you already have crafting. When you subsist, you can use crafting or cooking lore. And on that subsist check, if you roll a failure, you get a success instead. You do get the quick alchemy benefits, though rather than being able to make any alchemical items, they must be consumables, and they must be consumable alchemical foods. And with the quick alchemy benefits, you get alchemical crafting, but you can only select alchemical foods with this, but they can be up to first and second level. And of course, with quick alchemy, you get 4 versatile vials. Most of this can only be used for food anyway, but the vials do count as bombs. So that's kind of the long and short of it. The Wandering Chef dedication is interesting at the very least. I mean, I'm all for any kind of alchemical based archetypes because they just give your characters a lot more options, and they tend to lead to much more interesting things. Now, moving on in the dedication itself, I'm going to say it's not a very exciting dedication because most of it just kind of is just basic alchemical crafting archetype stuff. So, for instance, morning side dishes, the only unique thing is beyond the fact that it gives you advanced alchemy benefits, which just lets you make items at the beginning of the day. You create 5 items rather than 4, which is what you normally can use or make with alchemical crafting. Though these items must be alchemical foods. So there you go. Morning side dishes is interesting, and it works with the archetype really, really well, but overall is not a very exciting feat. Additional servings is also similar. Now, you do need to be at least expert in crafting or cooking lore, but I do at least like the fact that cooking lore is one of the things you can use. And this just gives you extra versatile vials every day. And in addition, you can select this feat multiple times at 12th and 18th level to increase the number of versatile vials you can create. So you can just always have food on hand. That is more or less what it does. But otherwise, again, a pretty unremarkable feat. Now, at level 6, we get food preservation. Now, this one is very interesting because it breaks normal alchemist conventions. Essentially, what it does through either pickling, use of alcohol, or fermentation, you can use whatever item you make with advanced alchemy, you can preserve one of them to not expire during your next daily preparations. Now, if you ever create another fermented or preserved food, the old one expires. But this essentially means that as long as you get like a day ahead of time, you can technically have an additional food on top of your normal advanced alchemy, which is very interesting. Now, at higher levels of crafting or cooking lore, you can make more. At expert, you get 2, master, you get 3, and at legendary, you get 5. So you can have a bunch of extra items just sitting around waiting to be used at any time. I don't know if this is particularly powerful for alchemical foods, but it's definitely interesting. And like I said, it breaks the normal conventions when it comes to alchemical archetypes. So that being said, is pretty interesting. And the fact that you have food on hand that you can easily use, I think is really, really interesting and really cool. So, preservation, I think, is a really good feat. Now, at level 10, we actually have an uncommon feat. Now, that you can see that there's a pretty big gap here in levels from because we had 2 level 6s, which means that if you don't have access to this level 10 feat, you really can't use only the wandering chef dedication if you're using the bonus archetype rule. And this one is kind of interesting. Now, the reason why it's this way is because this is actually a ritual. Yeah. So this feast planner gives you the fortifying brew ritual, though rather than drinks, you prepare lavish dishes instead. Now, you actually can take place of both the primary and secondary caster, though you do need to make the rolls for both positions. Rolls for both roles. Yeah, very interesting wording there. But you can use crafting or cooking lore instead of what they normally would require. So essentially, this is a one person ritual that you can use to help boost your team up with a food based ritual. It's pretty good. Honestly, uncommon is mostly just there for the sake of access for society play. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about for your games. It's not a very strong ritual by any means. So I think this one is particularly fine if your player wants to select this one. But I do have to state it is uncommon. So your GM can, for some reason or another, say no. Now, packed with flavor is a very good feat because more or less, as long as you're expert in either crafting or cooking lore, whenever you have an alchemical food or magic morsel, which magic morsels, if you're unfamiliar, are just like a type of item you can make that is a food item that has usually some effect either on you or on someone else. But whenever you use one of these abilities that grants an ability that allows for a saving throw, like maybe a hot food that gives a cone attack that's based on a reflex saving throw, rather than the item's DC, you can use your class DC or spell DC instead. This makes it really good, and honestly, I'm very sad to see it so high up in level here in this particular archetype dedication because should just be something you should get like pretty early on. Level 6, I would say at minimum. Now, in addition to this, though, this does have some really good benefits. When a creature consumes an alchemical food, magical morsel, or potions made by you, they also gain a +5 temporary hit points. And if you're mastering crafting, this becomes 10 temporary hit points, both of which last for an hour. So if you're an alchemist and you're making potions, then that's really, I guess it's potions. Well, I guess, yeah, potions, interesting because that's not an elixir typically, though alchemist does have a feat that allows it to be an elixir. So potions is a very interesting choice here, but essentially if you're a cook and you are also crafting potions, like magic potions on top of everything, boom, extra temporary hit points, which is actually insanely good. So I understand why this is level 12. I just wish they kind of split this up and put the changing the DC at like level 6. Maybe that's stepping on alchemist toes. I don't know, but it's mostly just for alchemical foods anyway, so I don't see it being that big of a deal. Regardless, packed with flavor is a really, really good feat. It's definitely a must take. At level 14, we get Cosmic Cocktail. You want to see infinity because we're going to see infinity from whatever we're putting in this drink. So once per day, you can spend a minute to create a special cocktail with colors that are reminiscent of the space and stars. Now, if immediately consumed after creation, you temporarily see everything all at once. You have Gojo's infinity essentially, but on yourself. It doesn't make you go crazy. It just gives you true sight for 10 minutes. An additional interesting part of it, though, is you use your crafting or cooking lore for counteract checks rather than whatever counteract you would normally have for using true sight, typically based on your spellcasting tradition. So, Cosmic Cocktail, you want to see everything, you want to see affinity, this is the drink for you. I find this super fun. I really like this, and as for a later game feat, I think this is absolutely perfect. And before we get to the final feat here, before I finish off, at least for this archetype video, I gotta ask, if you enjoy this content, please leave a like. I want pretty much any video that you guys are enjoying based on Pathfinder content, especially Tian Xia, to get likes, even if it's not from me. Because the more people talking about Tian Xia, the more people who are seeing content on Tian Xia on YouTube, the more people who are going to actually come and join us in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Pathfinder 2nd Edition is currently my favorite TTRPG. It has been for the last 4 years or so. And I want more people to see this game. It's really, really good. So the more we help the algorithm kind of like these kind of videos, hopefully the more people will join us at our tables. And if you like my content specifically, then subscribe. You get to see all kinds of tabletop related content. I'm going to be covering the Cosmere RPG, other TTRPGs, but more especially, I get content from Paizo a little bit earlier than most people do. So you'll get to see some of the new stuff from the books as like a week or so in advance if you subscribe to this channel. So if you want to see some new stuff from Paizo a little bit early, or if you just like TTRPG stuff in general, I definitely recommend to subscribe. All right, let's talk about the final feat here for the Wandering Chef archetype dedication, which is the regional specialty. Now, this does require that you have morning side dishes. You're probably going to have this anyway if you are the Wandering Chef, so that shouldn't be a big deal. So essentially what this one does is you get to add an additional benefit to each of your dishes you create during your daily preparation. So it has to be the ones used with your advanced alchemy, not your quick alchemy benefits. Now, you pick an element per dish that you make, and each benefit does something a little differently. Typically, they remove one bad condition on yourself or on whoever eats it, and gives an item bonus to any saves against a particular effect. For instance, wood removes one source of persistent bleed, which is really, really good. And for 1 hour, that target gains a +3 item bonus to saves against diseases and poisons. So, a really good effect. All of them are pretty solid. I'm not going to go over each and every one, but having a couple on hand, especially like water and wood that gets rid of persistent bleed or reduces the frightened condition, I think are incredibly solid choices to have with your cooking. And plus, a lot of these give some additional benefits if you know you're going up against certain creatures that use certain types of effects. But yeah, that's going to be it for the Wandering Chef. The Wandering Chef is such an interesting archetype, and it's something that I find was much needed in Pathfinder, because food is one of those things that like anyone can really relate to. Everyone needs to eat, or at least we as people outside the game need to eat, so we can relate to that. Maybe your characters don't need to eat, or maybe your characters eat some very weird things, but like at least out of the game, we can all relate to having a chef like in the party. Someone, if you have a friend who makes good food, then you should be able to appreciate the Wandering Chef. So that's going to be it for this video as far as the Wandering Chef is concerned. So if you guys want to see more on the cooking stuff, like I said, there'll be a link down in the description that goes to the full cooking video. But this is it for the archetype dedication itself. I just want to make sure that it's in that playlist so that everyone who's looking for archetypes can find it. But we're going to be continuing on with some of the cooking stuff. So for you archetype video watchers, bye for now. But for everyone else, let's go ahead and continue on with the video. So in addition to the Wandering Chef archetype dedication, we got some cooking rituals. Now, these are all very big, very lengthy, and I don't necessarily want to go into every single one of these. You can find them when Tian Xia releases, which is going to be on the 28th. So keep a lookout for those. But I'm going to give you guys my favorite ritual, which is Butterfly Bender. This is an interesting one. So it takes 2 hours to cast. It costs alcohol worth at least 20 gold pieces times the ritual's level. So at minimum, it's going to be 60 gold pieces if you're doing the level 3 variant. And this requires 2 secondary casters. Now, the primary check requires you're trained in medicine, and the secondary checks are both diplomacy. So what does this do? What does the Butterfly Bender do? You make a bunch of alcohol and you share it with people, and they get some things, they lose some things. It's a really fun ritual. It does a lot of interesting things. So essentially, you twist fate around a particular like drinking outing where essentially you and 5 other people, so I guess the ritual casters can prepare this for some other group, for instance, but you and 5 other people temporarily suspend judgment, hurl yourselves into drinking and enjoying yourself. And some things are gained, some things are lost. When you get a critical success on this particular check, you get to pick 2 from the above options I'm about to read, plus the GM gives you a third option of your choice. Now, whatever you don't pick from these options, you lose. So your dignity is 1. So you can choose to keep your dignity or lose your dignity. A lot of fun. You get a common item that has a consumable trait of a level no higher than that of the ritual, which might be useful for an upcoming challenge. If you lost this, you misplace all your currently carried items, including keys to where your equipment might be stored. With a modicum of effort, you recover the items within a day. So you lose all your gear if you don't select this option for a day. I mean, to be fair, I think you are going to want to select this option more often than not. Getting an additional consumable essentially for free. I mean, obviously the ritual isn't free, but the item is definitely going to feel free, especially if it's a higher level ritual, is pretty good. And losing all your gear for a day is pretty bad. So that's definitely one of the options I feel like people are going to pick more often than not. A really fun choice, though, is you make a new friend or connection as though you had succeeded a diplomacy check to make an impression with a relevant NPC. I love the word relevant here because if you can get them invested in what's going on, you could be friends with like a duke, for instance. That's kind of fun. Now, if this thing is lost, an existing friend refuses to speak to you for a day, and that's also really fun. So this one, take it or leave it. I think it's got some really interesting implications, but I think if you choose to lose this one, I think that also can be really, really fun. So I really like this particular option. You can gain a useful piece of information as though you had succeeded at a diplomacy check to gather information. Though if you choose to lose this option, you take a -4 status penalty to your next check to recall knowledge. This one is such an easy like drop. Like a -4 to your next recall knowledge check. Most characters don't even use recall knowledge anyway. So unless you're the smart like recall knowledge character in the party, easy drop. You can pick some of the other options, which will probably be better for you anyway. And if you do want to pick this one up, you can get some good information out of it too. So another really, really solid choice. And finally, you can gain a convenient opportunity of the GM's choice. So the GM says something convenient for whatever you guys are doing is happening. Now, if there are no immediately relevant opportunities, as determined by the GM, then you find an opportunity to earn income at the ritual's level +1. So at the very least, you can recoup the cost of the ritual if there's no other convenient opportunities, which I think is really good. Now, obviously, it's not going to be the full recouping, but at least a little bit of recouping for essentially what had happened can be good. Now, if you lose this opportunity, the next result of your earned income is 1 degree of success worse. That is a little bad because you do essentially earn an income over a period of time. So I feel like that part is a little bit weird because you can be like, oh, well, I'll just do it for a day and then I'll do another earn an income later or something like that. Obviously, I guess it would be by like a job. So whatever job opportunity you have available to you. But this one is kind of one of the weirder ones. Honestly, this one's probably also an easy drop. Most players don't do earn an income on many adventures anyway, so losing that isn't really a big deal. Though finding a good opportunity for something can be really, really solid, making this also a really good choice. Now, if you don't critically succeed but succeed instead, you still get to pick 2 of the above options. If you fail, you get to pick 1 of the above options. And if you crit fail, you pick 2 of the options from the above list. The GM gives you 1 of them. So at the very least, every time you do this special butterfly bender, you get something out of it, even if you critically fail. The GM just has to determine which one you get. But this is a very fun ritual. This is what rituals should be, is something that is interesting, is more applicable for out of character stuff, but has some good like relevant stuff for whatever your journey is about. Maybe you are trying to overthrow a warlord or something like that. There's a lot of good uses of this particular ritual in a lot of different aspects of the game. So I'm going to say this is an insanely good ritual. Now, there's 2 other rituals. You guys will have to wait to see when it releases for the book coming out soon. But I want to quickly move on to some alchemical cooking, which are new alchemist feats. Yes, we got new alchemist feats in addition to several of the other classes that got new feats in this book, which is really cool. So with alchemical cooking, we first have numbing spice exhalation. So this is a level 4 feat, and essentially it is an additive that you put on an alchemical food specifically. And once someone eats this alchemical food, once within the next hour, they can spend a single action to breathe a gout of flame in a 15-foot cone. Each creature in that cone takes 1d6 fire damage for every 2 levels you have with a basic reflex saving throw against your class DC. As an alchemist, that's really, really good. And the fact that you can give this to anyone gives your ally essentially a free 15-foot cone attack that you can make. And honestly, alchemical foods are really good to eat as well. So it's all benefits. This is really, really good. If you have an alchemist who wants to do some alchemical cooking, it's a really good feat to start out with. My favorite feats, though, from this list of feats is fermenting liquors. This is a really solid one. It's a singular action. Also, you can get this one at level 4, but this is a once per day ability, so you know it's good, and it does require that you have a hand free. So you retrieve a special batch of preserved liquor, and you give this liquor to either yourself or to an adjacent ally who's willing. The creature recovers hit points equal to twice your level. And additionally, for the next hour, all diplomacy checks to influence that creature gain a +1 status bonus, which is really funny. So that character becomes a little bit more willing to hear you out, so you can use this for out of combat benefits. But honestly, just a single action, double your level and HP you can give to an ally or yourself is really, really good, actually. Now, sure, it's only once per day, and as far as healing goes, that's not super great, but I do really like it. And the fact that this is both an in-game or in combat and out of combat feat, I gotta say is really, really good. So fermenting liquors is definitely my favorite feat, and it doesn't even require the use of alchemical food. So if you're just a normal alchemist, man, you can just have some really good liquor on hand, which I think is really fun. Glitter crystals at level 8 is also really, really good, actually. It's an additive, and you apply it to any alchemical elixir with the healing trait or alchemical food. Now, you choose one of the following effects to either reduce the drain condition by 1, reduce the stupefied condition by 1, remove the dazzle condition, or remove the deafened condition. The creature who consumes the modified healing elixir or alchemical food gains this benefit in addition to whatever the food or elixir gives. Now, this has no effect against creatures who are like permanently stupefied or deafened, but otherwise, this is a really solid benefit. So glittering crystals is really good because it just allows you to remove a pretty bad condition in addition to like a healing potions effect, which I think is incredibly solid. And speaking on incredibly solid feats, we have Sour Bomb. This one's actually legitimately also really good. It's another additive at level 10, and this one has the olfactory trait. So a creature needs to be able to smell, and this cannot be prevented by creatures who can smell, which is very cool. So any creature hit by the bomb must make a fortitude save. This is an additive to a bomb. Any creature that's hit by the bomb must make a fortitude save against your class DC in addition to the bomb's normal effects. Now, if they succeed, they're unaffected, but they have a strange craving for pickles. That's kind of funny. That's kind of fun. If they fail, they're sickened 1, and if they crit fail, they're sickened 2 and fleeing for 1 round from the smell. Sour Bomb is really good because it's just an additive. You just, bam, pop it on a bomb you're about to use, and the enemy just might become sickened 1. Sickened 1 is a terrible condition that can't be removed unless they hork it up using one of their actions. So that's really good. And even if it doesn't, even if they succeed the save, then the enemy is just going to look confused as they have a strong craving for pickles. It's a really good feat. It's really fun. It's very interesting and mechanically incredibly powerful. So Sour Bomb is a really, really good feat. And as we the video is going a little bit long for my taste. Obviously, we had a whole archetype and everything to throw in the middle. So I'm going to cover just a couple of alchemical foods. Well, an alchemical food and a magic morsel that were added to this book. If you want to see the rest, they'll be released with everything else on the 28th, probably on Path Builder more often than not. Archive of Nethys is a little bit slow, but it will eventually be on Archive of Nethys. But first, let's talk about an alchemical food called rainbow vinegar. So, rainbow vinegar has an activate of 1 action, has a manipulate trait. It's also a consumable and it's an elixir. So, that's very important for alchemists specifically. So, this rainbow vinegar, upon ingesting, turns your sweat acidic and you become non conductive. Your unarmed attacks deal an additional D4 acid damage, and you gain a resistance 10 to electricity. Those are both really, really good, but strangely enough, this has additional benefits against vampires specifically. So vampires find the vinegar particularly harmful, and they take an additional 2d4 damage of acid rather than 1d4 damage. Now, if you take more than a single dose of rainbow vinegar in a single day, you gain a weakness 5 to acid until your next daily preparations. So that might not be a super big deal, so you might be able to use this frequently. Though, be careful because acid damage is some of the splashiest stuff in the game and can make you incredibly vulnerable. Now, there is a greater variant where the resistance increases to 15 damage and the additional damage is a D8, which is pretty cool. Now, it's a level 12 item, so I guess that does make sense, but I do really like it. So, rainbow vinegar as an alchemical food item, I think is really, really cool. Very, very interesting. And for a singular action to just get some extra damage for the next 10 minutes is really solid. So rainbow vinegar, an insanely good food. And finally, a magic morsel. Now, this one is a magical food. So magic morsels are essentially magical. If I guess I didn't say earlier, but if you didn't know, magic morsels are not alchemical items, they're magical items. And we're going to talk about ghost fowl porridge. So, there's a lot of countries and a lot of communities out there that just use every part of the chicken when it comes to cooking. And apparently for this one, they use the soul of the chicken to make their porridge. This porridge is insanely good because for a single action, you consume this porridge and you get a +2 item bonus to saving throws against being petrified for an hour. Okay, that's fine. That's very specific, but particularly niche. But you also gain a resistance 3 against physical damage for the duration. So you are harder to petrify. And in addition, your skin becomes like stone and you just resist physical damage for an hour. That's really, really good. Now, it's 140 gold pieces to make this porridge, but I think at level 9 or later, that's not too much to ask for a good, magical food that you can eat. And man, if you love chicken, you might as well eat its soul too, right? So ghost fowl porridge is an incredibly interesting magic morsel that you can have. And that's going to be it. I definitely would have liked to go into more of the foods that released, but this video would just be forever long, and I don't necessarily want to do that necessarily. Plus, I want people to talk about it on the internet and discover some of these for themselves, because honestly, some of these foods and some of the rituals are incredibly interesting. So that's going to be it for the video, but hopefully you all enjoyed. And this is a very strange video. I never made like 2 videos essentially in one before, so it might have been a little hokey. Let me know if that was overly disruptive to you guys. Also, I'm going to be covering one more video on Tian Xia before I take my weekend off and don't do anything for a week, because I've been making a video every day for a week. So if you want something specifically, please let me know down in the comments below. There's one more chance to get something you've been wanting to see. I've been reading the comments. I've been doing my best to appeal to whatever the thing most people talk about, but I'm not actually calculating it. So the more people shouting out about a particular topic, the more I'm likely to cover it. Anyway, thank you. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck and cooking to me, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.